Silence. Only the sound of the surf. For an ancient Greek, the sea was never calm. It was the boundary between the world of the living and the unknown. If you set sail, you signed a pact with death. Poseidon, second in power only to Zeus. But if Zeus ruled the sky, which we see every day, Poseidon ruled an element that is impossible to control. Today, we will not simply retell the myths. We will analyze his psychology, his power, and why every Greek thought twice before uttering his name aloud. You will learn how the infant Poseidon tricked his cannibal father and transformed into a horse. You will understand why this god hated the Trojans more than they hated themselves. We will see how he lost a contest for the best city on Earth to a girl, and we will find out whether his curse exists in the ocean today. Buckle up, it's going to be a rough ride. Poseidon's story began with deception. His father, the Titan Cronus, feared that his children would overthrow him, and so he swallowed them alive. Rhea, his mother, gave birth to Poseidon and couldn't bear it. She gave the infant to the sea demons, the Telchines, to raise on the island of Rhodes, and she palmed off on Cronus a foal. According to another version, a stone. Interesting fact, the Telchines didn't just babysit the god, they forged his first trident, but they were evil sorcerers who could summon hail and drought. That is why Poseidon developed such a contradictory character from childhood. He absorbed both divine power and demonic fury. While Zeus was preparing the uprising, Poseidon lived in the underwater world, surrounded by nymphs and strange creatures. He learned to command the waves, but he never learned to forgive. Let's break down his iconography. The trident. This isn't just a fish fork. Originally, the trident was a symbol of power over three elements: water, earth, underground tremors, and air, since he controlled mists and clouds. One strike of the trident could split a rock in half, causing a spring to gush forth. The chariot. Forget boring horses. Poseidon is pulled by hippocamps. These creatures were so fast that the god's chariot could race across the waves faster than the wind, never submerging. Sometimes he would ride on a huge sea beast, a ketos, the prototype of a whale. His entourage, the Nereids, the 50 daughters of the sea. Sage Nereus, they are beautiful but treacherous. They might drown a sailor for a handsome glance, or they might save him. The chief herald, Triton. He blows on a conch shell. A loud sound summons a storm. Now, onto the personal life. Poseidon was capable of love. Once on the island of Naxos, he saw the Nereid Amphitrite. She was dancing among her sisters, and the god lost his head. But he approached her, as usual, with force. Frightened by his brute strength, Amphitrite fled as far as she could, to the Titan Atlas, who held up the sky on his shoulders. Poseidon didn't know how to search. He knew how to destroy. So he called upon dolphins, his spies. The dolphins found her and spoke so beautifully about the god's feelings, his palace, and his power that Amphitrite agreed to return. The joyful Poseidon made her queen of the seas and placed the dolphin among the stars in the sky. Poseidon never resigned himself to playing second fiddle. Once he led a conspiracy against Zeus. He was joined by Hera and Athena. They crept up on the sleeping thunderer and bound him hand and foot with rawhide thongs. It seemed that power had changed hands. But then Thetis, the mother of Achilles, intervened. She summoned to Olympus the 100-handed giant Briareus, who terrified the conspirators. Zeus was freed. The punishment was severe. Apollo and Poseidon had to serve penance. They were exiled to Earth and forced to build the walls of Troy for King Laomedon. It was then that Poseidon came to hate Troy, not only because he wasn't paid, but also because of the humiliation. How was Poseidon worshipped? They sacrificed black bulls to him, drowning them in the sea. But most importantly, sailors left him offerings: tripods, coins, figurines. Archaeologists still find treasures at the sites of sunken ships. This was payment to Poseidon for safe passage. In Rome, he was called Neptune. On July 23rd, they celebrated the Neptunalia, building huts from leaves, having fun, and praying for rain. Today, Poseidon has become a brand. We see his trident on the logos of muscle cars. Submarines and drones bear his name. He is the archetype of elemental power. But the ancient meaning has faded. We have stopped fearing the sea. We have forgotten that sailors once upon a time would write their wills before setting sail. Poseidon reminds us, man is not the king of nature, but merely a guest on this planet.